a year after George Floyd was killed by a police officer in the US, and the subsequent protests, anti-Black racism is still alive and visible. Just a few days back, a little Black girl was a victim of it. Boys in one of the Simcoe County schools threatened to rape her. They called her N-word and told her to kill herself. There are organizations that are highlighting anti-Black racism, educating general people about it, and helping Black communities in various ways. One of such organizations is Uplift Black. It recently celebrated its first anniversary. Today, I have with me its program director, Gillian Rawberri Scobie. We talked about the recent incident, work done by Uplift Black in the last year, and what are its future plans. Thank you so much, Gillian, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about various Uplift program, and I'm going to talk about them. But one thing came up, and you must have read or heard about it, that in one of the Simcoe County District School Boards, a little Black girl, she was. It's so horrifying, right? She was she was threatened to rape and called N-word, and she was told to go kill herself. And I don't know what's going on, in our society, in our school system. And then in the same classroom where she was sitting, her teacher asked to forgive those boys. And then after all the outcry, they suspended. So could you if you have more information about it, could you talk about it, please?
I don't know if you've pretty much you've said everything that we know as well, and of course to respect the family. There's only so much that we really can say. However, I think what's happening at this particular time is some people think that there's an increase, and I don't think that's the case. I think what's happening is these things have been swept under the rug, and it just becomes exhausting because you don't know who to turn to, who you can relate to. And even at some ages, some children just believe that they are getting in trouble, and so they don't run home and speak about it. And so as groups like Uplift Black and a partner group, Parents Against Racism Simcoe County, have started working together, one after the other, it has been very apparent as parents are feeling more comfortable speaking in this community amongst themselves that what we thought was a once in a every occasion type of experience has been happening constantly. And we're hearing about it now because we've been reaching out to the community and asking for them to share their experiences. And I think mainly as a Black parent, it's because I know when I've had difficulties trying to get answers, it wasn't easy. And, as a working parent or as a stay-at-home parent, I have tried to speak to the school board in different occasions, and it can be very exhausting and defeating. And so coming together as a group like this, unfortunately, we're just hearing a lot more about it.
I am a new immigrant to Canada, and what I see is new immigrants, especially those that are coming from South Asia,
yes,
especially from India, which is the second largest immigrant group after people coming from Britain. And I see the new immigrants, that awareness about that solidarity with Black people is not there. And I personally take the blame, and I think people like me should work more, because I recently did research when I was doing my master's at Ryerson about freedom struggle in Kenya. And I read a lot of books and a lot of newspaper articles, and I see Indians living in Kenya, in Africa, were kind of, they were not directly the colonizers, but they were working with the colonizers, the judiciary system. So there's blame that has to be put on Indians living in Africa, especially in Kenya, and that's so what is your experience when it comes to other immigrant community, other BIPOC community, those are working with Black communities to address these issues?
from being both a child that grew up within the school system and from being an adult working within the work system, I have to say, I believe it almost feels like, sometimes it feels like everybody is trying to get favored because we know each other's struggles. And so often what I will say is, even in the situation of, if I take one of my unique qualities of being a woman, sometimes you'll see many women in a workplace, and instead of working together, it becomes, I need to prove that I am the best woman and a step over the other women to try and prove why I am that choice woman to work amongst these men. And so I do see similar things happen within different communities that have come here. And sometimes it's a great relationship where we're starting to understand, if we continue to come together, we are the majority. We are the majority, you know, and it's not a matter of saying that to be powerful. It's a matter of saying that to be, well, yes, powerful enough to overcome these behaviors. We can all support each other. The first thing that I want to know about someone that is from another area is, what do you eat there? Because I have Trinidadian background and I love to cook. I have a cooking business. And so to me, I want to sit down with our foods, see our similarities, see the differences, and talk about the cultures. And we all have so much to learn from each other. And so if we could learn to be more of a community and see what each person has to offer, even in your own groups, each person in each group also is part of another group. And that's how we network and come together and use all of those skills together to build a strong community and network. And that seems to be, a lot of people are fighting for their place in that network, and instead of being able to feel like we are all welcome in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, I think, you know, you hit you hit the nail right on the head, and I see that we kind of, you know, accepted that that, you know, the power, the ruling class is going to be, you know, white people. And so how do we get that favor from them in order that we don't, you know, struggle, we become, you know,
Yes.
part of, you know, get favor from them. So I think that's,
Yes.
you know, you definitely summarized it very well. And then there is a need to, you know, understand each other's struggle, because Indians living in India, you know, faced colonization, and, you know, Africans face the same. But once we go out, you know, we try to you know, forget that past. Your organization, Uplift Black, you know, in August, I believe, you know, completed 1 year. So
Yes.
it started in 2020, a few months after, you know, as we know, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis by a white police officer. So how do you see the last year of progress, you know, when it comes to racial equality, especially when it comes to Black people? How do you see that progress in last 1 year?
Well, I have to say that first, allowing the community to know that there is a group wanting to be supportive, wanting to hear the struggle so that we can overcome these battles. I think the first year was really getting our name out there and letting people know we were here and we were ready to join forces and stand up together. You know, mainly I would say for our children, as we have survived this and realize how difficult it can be. And so this last year has been amazing, because Uplift Black has made sure that we are a Black-led company, but we have all sorts of people, all sorts of allies. And what is amazing is, in a lot of these situations, when racism hits, it is so exhausting, because it's just such a constant thing, that it has been amazing throughout this last year seeing some of our allies step forward when they see that an issue has come up and say, hold on, I've got this, and just go into action. And so I have seen a different reaction from allies this time around. And I believe it's because the world was pretty much shut down when we were seeing all of these things. We were being forced to see what really happens every day. And when it's that raw and it's that in your face, it's hard to deny. And you kind of have to choose which side you're going to be on. So the reality is, we have seen a big change in the community, trying to put awareness out and assist those in need. Just be humane to one another and have a safe space for everyone to learn, understand, and just come together and be a wonderful community that other communities will want to come and visit because of our unity. So we're definitely working towards that, and I'm saying that we've had a lot of success.
That's really great to know. And I lived in the US before coming to Canada, and I still have friends there from across Black, white, Asian, South Asian, all the communities. And when I talk to my friends, especially from India, they tell me that their children have much more awareness about these problems. Their children are forcing them to talk about these issues at home, because they were not aware about it, but they go to school in the US, they have friends who are Black, and they see their struggles, and they want their friends to have equally peaceful and safe life as they are. So I definitely see a lot of changes, as you said, are happening around with newer generation, and that's definitely a great a great positive thing that we are achieving in this society.
Absolutely.
And one of the things came out of the protest after George Floyd was police accountability and defunding the police, and that gathered a lot of steam after the movement. But now we see that statistics came out that a lot of the crime went up during the pandemic, especially in the last few months. So now there is again increase in the policing budget, and when we see that increase in the policing budget, we see disproportionate effect of that on Black and immigrant communities. So how do you see this the whole police accountability movement that started last week, and how that is changing now?
I think that I always come back to this. I think that globally, there is a huge mental health issue right now. And I think when it comes to policing, as well as the BIPOC community and other racialized communities, there is a rawness, a vulnerability. Everybody feels almost exposed and maybe back into that situation where it feels like we're just trying to get that place of being heard and understood. And I'm going to say, within policing, and I grew up within a policing family, and so this is very personal to me. It is something that, just like the school system, we are putting tools into these individuals' hands. And if we're not very careful who we're putting those tools into the hands, it can be quite dangerous. And I believe that is the problem here. When you look at the reports of police being in schools, for example, it has a very negative effect on Black students. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the school to prison pipeline, where it's this thing that we just see happen over and over. And it often in places like Barrie really stand out because these children stand out and they're very easy to remember. And that's one thing I told my son is, when you leave the house, you leave with your best face on, because you don't know who's watching and who's going to remember you, because you stand out. And so when it comes to the policing, I just feel there needs to be, I think, a major mental health check and re-education of, diversity, inclusion, equity, anti-racism. If they're going to be within the school system, maybe get the proper training to work with children, which is my biggest reason why I don't believe they need to be in the school system. We have social workers for that, especially if we know that it is negatively affecting some of our students. We don't allow, I keep quoting Amber Beckett, we don't allow peanuts in the school for the few kids that are allergic to them, because we know how horrifyingly deathly that can be to them. And so we're asking for that same respect. And unfortunately, we're just, we're not in a place where I think there's just such a negative outlook on policing because of some individuals, just like, you know, the BIPOC community. And the way that these situations are handled, perhaps, we need to really take a look at who these individuals are, why these things are happening, instead of sending them back into these positions that could potentially put another person in danger. And that goes for the school system as well, teachers and police. I just feel that we need an overhaul right now. There's a lot of information coming out about the realities of how history came to be. I read an article the other day about how African history has basically been erased from, you know, the history books and in the realities of how everything came to be. And that is a system that we live in, and it has been allowed. And until everybody is truly taught and understanding what has happened, I think that it's just, when it comes to policing, I just think there's a lot of learning that needs to happen before the conversation can really, I think the communities need to sit down and have a serious conversation. I think that's what needs to happen. Because it's just not, it's not feeling like a safe space right now. I think that's really all I can say.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't know, because especially when it comes to BIPOC communities, especially Indigenous and Blacks, they are they are affected a lot by policing. And you know, there are 2 points, and I would like to talk about from your conversation. And one is, it's if it's too personal, you choose not to talk. But how is it like to have a conversation with your son? Because when everybody else, if you are a white person, white child, you can just go out whatever you want, you can have fun, you can dress the way you want, you can behave the way you want. But when it comes to a Black or Indigenous person, you have to tell them that you don't want to be identified, you don't want to stand out. We tell kids, do something that you stand out, and people take a notice. But then if you're Black, don't try to stand out. So how that conversation with your son?
It's interesting, actually, because I'm going to take another example from the pandemic. My son loves basketball. Basketball is his life. And so when the pandemic hit, one of the reasons that I had moved into the home we were living in was because there were basketball courts right behind the house, so that no matter when he wanted to go and practice playing ball, there was a court nearby. And so when the pandemic hit and we were told, the parks had been closed down, we were seeing that there were neighborhood kids who would still go and play ball back there. They'd space themselves out and whatnot, but they were there. And so my son would say to me, can't I just go back there, my own net, and shoot the ball? And I said, you can't. And I said, because you are a 6-foot-some Black child who will look like a man to some, who will look like many different things to some. And the reality is, if the police do get called, or if the police decide to show up and ask what you're doing there, even if you look at these other children and say, but they're over there, the point is, you're still not supposed to be there. And so it's those extra steps where you then see that there are privileges and comfort levels that we just don't have.
Yeah.
Waking up in the morning and knowing how to dress yourself, knowing how to speak, knowing so that you don't get all of these different treatments. And it's exhausting. Yeah. And so I've always told him, once again, you have to make sure that when you leave this house, you leave with your best face on. If you want to have a bad day, you stay at home, because these things can follow you, and you need to always present yourself as the person that you want to be respected as when somebody's speaking to you, and you want that respect. And so you must behave that way. And it has, I believe, helped him. He's absolutely had issues. I mean, again, it happens daily, but he has been positive enough to take the role and understand and be the best version of himself, like I've described. And that's all I can really do, is just tell him that I'm sorry, but this is just This is the way it is.
So he has to grow a lot sooner than he should have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And I remember one particular when I was in Boston. I was doing my master's, and there was one presentation by undergrad students. There were 4 students giving the presentation, and it was finance presentation. So 2 of them were wearing suit and jacket,
Yes.
and 2 were wearing t-shirts. And professor said to me that he pointed out to one student who was black, and he said, this person is not going to be very successful. He's not going to have a great career, because see, he is wearing a t-shirt when everybody giving the presentation is wearing a suit. And then I pointed out to the student, to the professor, I think there is another student is also wearing a t-shirt and who was white. So the professor did not even notice a white student wearing a t-shirt. And because I knew this black student very well, and he was one of the brightest students, and he was and he had a very hard time finding a job in finance, because finance is very much reserved for white, and you see a lot of Indians as well in finance industry. And when I talked to him, and he told me that he was not supposed to give the presentation that day, but somebody else did not come up, and then he just filled in that spot. So just that just struck me so hard that there are 2 people wearing the same outfit, and professor
Yes.
calls one out.
Yes.
And that's what then I realized that it's as a BIPOC student, I understood that there is a lot more discrimination when it comes to black people than than even we face, and then I need to be more aware about it and more vocal about it. So I witnessed it myself, and I was quite taken aback by that.
Yeah. And you probably even notice yourself. I mean, I say often in the, when I'm being interviewed, often by white interviewers, I'll be asked, how do I think this starts at home, or how do I think these problems begin? And I'm going to be honest with you. I often say to them, let's go to the Walmart and let's just go and buy our necessities together. And when we leave, let's just see the difference in who was able to get what they needed. From the time you go into the grocery store as a young child, you see who is being catered to. Yeah. They have made it blatantly clear who is not a big enough piece of the pie. And what I often find is, from my experience working in retail, they will often overstock in items for lighter shades, for example, or fair haired products, or things like this. They will overstock, knowing they're not going to sell it all, but making sure that demographic is covered. Whereas I have to go elsewhere or run around trying to find what I need, or when the pandemic hit, it hurt even harder, because I now am thinking, do I go and put my life at risk for my necessities to go down to the city when everybody is staying at home? And so again, you see who is being catered to. And so it just became that much harder for, again, our community to be able to just, exist on a daily basis. And so when we're hearing everybody panicking about the pandemic, it was interesting, because I almost felt like saying, welcome to my world. And it sucks. And seeing the level of panic and franticness, and I want this and I want that. And it was like, you got to get to the back of the line. I've been here my whole life waiting, and I keep saying, we keep chanting that every child matters. And God, can we just act like it? Every child matters, but why do we see so many of these children without water? We see how many of these people don't exist, because we're finding out that residential schools, you find out through slavery, you find out how so many people were omitted. Just omitted from being able to even exist. And then you want to start chanting these things, and it's like, but what are you doing to actively make these changes? Because it's not right.
No, that's that's absolutely right. And you talked about your son's experiences and what the incident that happened a couple of days back. So what changes do you expect from Simcoe County School District in particular when it comes to Black and Indigenous and other BIPOC students and families?
I think that I would like to give credit to both Matthew Webb and Dean Maltby, who we have been working with from the school board. And they've only been in their positions probably about almost 2 months. And I will say that it has been a breath of fresh air. We feel like we are being heard. Now, these aren't things that can happen overnight, but I do feel like perhaps we have the right formula now, and we are, discussing the right education and programming that staff need to have. We're discussing the accountability that staff need to also have. For example, what took place with the young girl, there needs to be some accountability for who is responsible for our children day in and day out. Again, we're sending them to it's supposed to be a safe space. And so what I'm expecting and hoping for is as we as community partners are navigating for these parents and families, we would love a system where it will be easier for all children to be able to report these issues, because sometimes it's hard for them to maybe go into the principal's office because they don't want to look like they're being, and so we want a way where it's easier for people to put what's happening to them out there. And then the system to then identify where that item falls and have the right person then handle it. Because often what I find is that there's not enough lived experience. And so often when you have these teachers or principals or superintendents looking at you and saying, well, we're sorry, this is the outcome, but we just don't see anything wrong, or there's nothing we can do, they never look like me. And so it feels even more hurtful because it then feels like it's being minimized. You can tell a person what hot feels like, but to feel it is completely different.
Yeah.
And so I often feel like we need to make sure we have the right people that are overlooking how we got here, how we fix this. We need to properly educate everyone right now. When you look at people coming into the country and the testing and the things they're supposed to know, I find it funny often because do the rest of us even know some of these things? There's so much that we have been told we need to know. And I find, as scary as a statement as it is for me to say this, children are so brilliant and so creative and so inventive. They have these imaginations. And what I find is once they get to school, there's now this system saying, well, hold on. You just need to know this only. And then they go to the next grade and, well, oh, no, don't just leave that. You just need to know this. And so it kind of stifles their individuality. Everyone learns different. And so we need to make sure that we understand that we don't all fit the same mold, and make sure that we have more diversity so that there is more relatability, more empathy, and more realistic outcomes and workspaces for all of us. Because what I see as an adult in workplaces tells me that these children grow up and just continue behaving this way. And if we don't do something about it, that would just be horrible. I do want to add to that. I do think that when I look at, the reality of realizing that my grandparents would have been from slavery, I look at, my parents and realize that they very much came here with the mentality that we've come to this place and we're very lucky and we are going to count our blessings, and we saw our parents struggle. And so you learn to sit and you take it and you count your blessings.
Yeah.
Right. But now, the generation's starting to realize, well, hold on, we all are equal, or should be.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel like that should be the case. And so we're now changing that mentality to, you don't have to sit and take it. It's like when the Me Too came out, when everybody starts to speak and say, well, hold on, why don't I get paid the same? Or why do these industries make women do these things? Everybody started to speak and realize this isn't okay. And so the worldwide bullying got called out. And I believe that's where we are, and I think that's where we should be to begin.
No, that's absolutely right, because for too long they told us that we should be fortunate that the capitalism gave you so much progress, so forget about the slavery, forget about the colonization, just think about what you have right now. But it's still going on. People still suffering in the global south to produce all this that is consumed by Europeans and North Americans. So you are right, it's time has come to tell that no, it's not us, it should be you feel lucky that you got so many things for absolutely nothing. You just walked in and you have the land and you just got the resources. So I think that's, you're right, this is high time to call that out. And your organization does a lot of public education. You have different programs that you do, Uplift Black 65, Uplift Black student school presentation. So could you talk about Uplift Black 365 program, and what do you do under that program?
So basically, so there's so many lead coordinators that we have, and to be honest, there's so many different programs that basically, overall, what we are making sure is that people are understanding the differences between the different forms of racisms, the different within the LGBT community, just all of everyone's individualities. And so again, we are really teaching that everyone needs to have a safe space. Everybody needs to be able to listen, to learn, to feel comfortable, and again, be a part of a community. And so the biggest thing that we really focus is on, education and wellness. Anytime we have one of our coordinators or leaders come forward and say, I'm having a day, not one of us will ever make that person feel guilty. We are always very uplifting in the sense of saying, you take your time, we are here for you, whatever you need, you just let us know. This is a space where you don't hesitate to say you're having a bad day or things are difficult, because everybody's willing to jump in and help. And so what we're really teaching right now is the reality that we are all here for each other, and how that looks, how it can continue to look, the proper languages, and we also do have a business program that we have out there right now for Black-owned businesses. And again, it's really just to get the community members where they need to be. We've been in this society of, you need to get the piece of paper that we said makes you good enough. It doesn't matter if you were a doctor when you came here, it means nothing here now. You need our piece of paper to prove that you're good enough. And I think this is a time when, especially after the pandemic, people started to realize what it is to really just hustle and work for themselves, with gig work and things like that on the rise. And so I think the reality right now is that we really are just showing everyone how to be the best versions of themselves through networking, through community, and through being open to learn and have conversations with one another in a safe space, and how to support community members, children, how to listen and not become defensive, how to be a good ally, and how to be a good support system to our allies. It's just constantly we are teaching how to be more humane.
How has been the response so far in Simcoe County in Barrie for your programs?
We have had a great response, I have to say. There's always a few people that feel like once the name Black is in the title, well, why are you excluding? And so I will say this, we can only speak from our own lived experiences. And so, I had a gentleman the other day speak to the fact that policing in schools doesn't just affect Black children, it can negatively affect people with disabilities. And so I explained to the gentleman, I'm not denying that, but I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. And so what I want to make sure that people understand is we are speaking from our experiences and standing up for our own selves and lived experiences, but all of these communities who feel those ways, we want everyone to come together and hear what is happening. That's why we want to make sure that we are hearing the Indigenous communities and respecting, like you said, we all have come from places that have been colonized. And so we know that feeling and want to respect each other's spaces. And so I think that it has been a beautiful, beautiful year. It's been a hard year, and I have been supported by people that I have still yet to meet because I've only spoke to them on Zoom. And I will tell you that before we disconnect, it's always, I love you, you have a great day, and you need anything, you let me know. And so it's been a beautiful community. I just see more and more people wanting to take part. I see the students wanting to get more involved. We have gardens, we have an arts community committee, we have an advocacy committee. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. The businesses, school boards, we've really been welcomed. I have to say, we've really been welcomed. Now, being welcomed is one thing. So it's a matter of seeing it looks like you're listening. It's going to take a little bit more time to prove the success of whether or not it's working. I would like to say at this point, it is. But we're going to keep getting louder and louder.
No, I think that's very important, that this is the first step, that, people are open to listen. And as you said, there are people who say, there are communities who also have problems. So what's the big deal that you are having a problem? But if we are talking about, everybody equal, then we clearly see the Indigenous and Black communities are not treated equal. So that's we need to accept that, definitely, somebody with disability, that also need to answer, but you can't just dilute the problems and struggles of Black and Indigenous people by just saying that, oh, those people also have a problem. So that's I think, but this is I'm so happy that you got a good response, because this is a first step that everybody started accepting this reality and become. And you said very nicely that you are getting louder and louder. And there was one cartoon I saw during this George Floyd protest, and this one white man, opening his window, his head out of the window, and he's telling the protesters, why don't you be quiet and do everything peacefully, so I can go back and just ignore you. So that has been happening, because if you are just too nice and too peaceful, they want you to be peaceful, and so they can ignore you and not pay any attention. So it's I think it's very important to be louder and straightforward. And now we are talking about the constructive thing that can be done. And one of the programs that you have is Uplift Black mentorship program. And I think you just closed the application. You accepted the application. So how was the response, and how the program works?
So again, the response has been great. And the program started a few weeks back. And again, it's really just a matter. So within the last year, we saw that there were a lot of grants that the government started to announce for Black-owned businesses. But you still can't just walk into the bank and say, okay, I'm Black, I have a business, give me money. And so what we want to make sure is, because all of these things that kind of kept us back, there's a catching up that we have to do, right? And so basically it's a matter of, when you look at the statistics of women trying to get loans for businesses, Black women trying to get loans for businesses, it's not usually a great success story. And so what we're doing is we're basically bringing these people in to give them all of the tools that they need to be ready, so that when they walk into the bank, they are part of this network, their head is held high, and they are ready to say, here is what I've done, here is who I am, and this is why you're going to give me this money. And I think there's just something about, again, when you're relatable with people, and you have people that not always, sometimes do look similar to you, to be able to say, okay, Black women, we can do this. Don't let people make it seem like we can't, or your loud voice is a negative thing. This is who you are. You are the business. You are what is going to stand behind this product. And so this is what this program is really about. Is there's the Henry Bernick Center Entrepreneur Center came and is involved. The Small Business Center of Barrie. We have Joy Adams from Wellness Financial, and just so many different people. The Barrie Public Library. All these people came forward wanting to help out, jump in, and put their free time to the success of this program. And so again, the allyship of people saying, we have the tools and we want to give you those tools for you to be successful in your mission. And so this business program has just been, it's been very, very positive, and it's a great feeling every time that we log in.
You are a businesswoman, so I think, as you said, it's very important that people from all the backgrounds, come together so they can, they can definitely help each other. And Black women's voice has always been so important in North America, because there was, I'm sure you know the movie The Birth of the Nation, right? The movie came out in the US, I think in 1930s, silent movie, and that portrayed Black people as illiterate and savages. And so when the movie came out, the first protest against the movie was in Boston, and that was held by Black women. So Black women came out in record number in Boston to protest against the movie. So it's there's a history of activism among Black people, and especially Black women. As we are looking ahead, so how do you see your next year or coming years for Uplift Black, and are there any special plans for that?
I say that we are just, we have been reached out to by so many different communities, the Toronto community, the Ottawa community, the Windsor community. And so honestly, I feel that we are just getting bigger. As people leave the community, because we have a lot of different university students and college students that are working with us, as they leave and go to other communities, they're continuing the work. And so this is just within a year, we're seeing that people they don't want to let go, and they're really enjoying the feeling of the work that they're doing with us. And so I would say we're just going to get bigger, because we really want to make it known that we are here to, again, support our community and our children, but we are also here so that no one has to deal with these things. And wherever we can educate, wherever we can, speak about our experiences, we will. And so we're just going to keep, again, when I say making noise and getting louder, we also are a group that respectfully understands you want to match your audience, right? You're not going to speak the same way to everyone. And so while I say that, I do say, you also want to be very careful that you're not being loud in a way that you're just making noise, because nobody wants to listen to that, right? And so that's another part of the education, is making sure that we are also learning how to even speak to those that are being disrespectful to us, and be able to take a deep breath and understand. But I think that we're just going to continue getting bigger. There's so many ideas that just keep coming forth, and it's great because Shelley Skinner and I just kind of look at each other and giggle because it's like, let's do it. Like, let's just, there's nothing stopping any of these ideas. And it's funny because not all of us have specific pieces of paper for some of the things that we're doing. We're just really good at them. And so what we're showing our kids in our community is just do it. Just do it. Just start, just love it, just do it, learn as you go. And the courses can fall, like there's so many ways that we can learn and we can do these things, but we all have these special skills. And just because we didn't get the piece of paper from the places that approved us to have the pieces of paper, we're really starting to uplift each other. And starting with high school students, giving them placements so that when they leave, they have learned work experience, leadership experience, letting them get into the community and not just work with us, but lead and understand, what it is to look like, one of these people that is part of this community, whether it be an ally or whatever part you are of Uplift Black, and stand there and hold your head up and take the stress that comes with it, but still get the message out there. And so we're just going to keep marching on. It's been wonderful.
That's so great, and I appreciate the work you are doing, and thank you so much for your time. This has been such a wonderful discussion, and it gave me so much energy and passion, and thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Gillian, you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepak, for speaking with me. You have a great day as well. Thank you. Cheers.
Okay,
Take
bye.
care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.